I was flipping a rack of ribs on my old barrel smoker when I saw the flashing blue lights come bouncing down the gravel trail. Now, I've had my fair share of surprises in life, serving 2 tours overseas, working 40 years in welding and pipework, losing my wife to a quiet kind of cancer that stole her away before her time, but I never thought I'd see a sheriff's cruiser tearing through the pines over barbecue. The lake cabin had been mine since '88. Bought it back when the water still sparkled clean and cell phones didn't exist. Just a slice of heaven on Cedar Pine Lake, tucked away in the northern stretch of the state where folks still waved at strangers. I kept the place in my wife's name even after she passed, because she loved it more than our house back in town. Every year since, on her birthday, I drove out here, smoked ribs, and listened to Patsy Cline until the moon rose. That particular afternoon, the sun was just beginning to dip past the trees, casting gold across the water. I was halfway through basting the ribs when I heard screeching tires and yelling. And sure enough, there she was, Karen McDougal, HOA president of the Cedar Pines Lakeside Community Enhancement District, stomping up my trail like she owned the dirt beneath her sandals. "You can't just light a fire out here without clearance," she screeched, brandishing her phone. I blinked. "Evening to you too, Karen." She didn't smile. "There are open flame restrictions this week." I gestured toward the smoker. "I'm not lighting a bonfire. I'm cooking ribs. You're welcome to grab a plate when they're ready." That's when she dialed 911, right in front of me. I heard her say the words clear as crystal. "Yes, there's a man with an illegal fire at cabin lot 17. I feel threatened. He refuses to extinguish it. He's being hostile." I raised an eyebrow. "Hostile?" She looked me dead in the eye. "You? I'll be evicted for this. I warned you about that unsanctioned grill months ago." Evicted. Now that's when I started to laugh. Not out of disrespect, but because Karen seemed to forget something rather important. See, the Cedar Pines HOA didn't actually own my land, or my cabin, or even the trail she'd just marched up without invitation. They thought they did. That's the problem. A couple years back, when Karen took over the HOA, she expanded the bylaws, started claiming buffer zones as part of HOA control. Then came the new regulations: no lake access after 6 p.m., no permanent grills, no outdoor tools visible from the road. She got away with it because folks didn't read the fine print, and frankly, most just wanted peace. But I read, and more importantly, I owned. The land was passed down from my father. Technically, the cabin, dock, and 30 feet of lakefront weren't part of the HOA development, but they wanted it to be. So they started pressure tactics. Karen led the charge. Last summer, she mailed me 3 violations: for a visible woodpile, for non-uniform fencing, and for playing music past curfew. Patsy Cline of all things. But this 911 call was her swinging for the fences. The deputy stepped out of the cruiser with a slow gait. I recognized him. Deputy Horner. Used to fish with my brother. "Evening, Earl," he said. "Evening, deputy." Karen stomped over. "Arrest him. He's violating fire code, refusing a lawful order, and making threats." Deputy Horner walked to the smoker, sniffed the air, and gave a slow nod. "Ribs?" "Baby backs," I said. "Mesquite." He turned to Karen. "Ma'am, this is a closed smoker on private property. No fire code violation here." "But he's defying HOA rules." Horner scratched his chin. "Karen, HOA bylaws don't override property law. This cabin ain't under Cedar Pines jurisdiction. You know that." Karen's mouth opened, but no sound came out, just a squeak. "And," Horner added, "you walked onto private land to make this call. Earl could file trespassing charges if he wanted." The color drained from her face. "You okay if I let her off with a warning?" Horner asked me. I looked at Karen. She was trembling with rage, but beneath that, I saw something else. Fear. I nodded. This time. As she walked off, muttering about lawsuits and calling the HOA board, I leaned over the smoker and turned the ribs, but my mind was already shifting gears. Karen had just crossed a line, and I had every document I needed to push back. Hard. That night, I couldn't sleep. I sat on the porch swing, an old wool blanket across my lap, Patsy playing low in the background. The moon hung high and full, silvering the lake like spilled mercury. Karen wasn't the first HOA president to be a thorn in my side, but she was the first one bold, or foolish, enough to try to use the law like a weapon. That 911 stunt wasn't just annoying, it was dangerous. If the wrong deputy had shown up, or if I had been younger and full of fire, it could have ended differently. And that's when I made up my mind. I called my lawyer the next morning, June Robertson, sharp as a knife, and just as clean. Her granddad had hunted with mine. She'd helped me draft the original exemption letter years ago when cedar pines first started creeping toward my property. June, I said, I think it's time we reminded them who owns what. She chuckled. About time. You still have the deed map I gave you? Framed it. Within a week, June filed an official complaint with the county. Then we submitted a cease and desist to the Cedar Pines HOA, citing trespassing, harassment, and attempted fraudulent enforcement of HOA bylaws on non-HOA land. We attached Karen's 911 transcript, which Horner gladly provided. But that was just the beginning. You see, what Karen didn't realize was that by calling the police under false pretenses and claiming jurisdiction she didn't have, she opened the HOA up to legal liability. June added a civil suit for damages and distress. And that's when things got really interesting. The board turned on her faster than a squirrel on a hot roof. Emails leaked. Meeting notes showed Karen had been warned multiple times not to bother me or other borderline properties. But she kept pushing. Then came the town hearing. It was supposed to be a routine zoning update, but June used it as a platform. She presented evidence, read Karen's statement out loud, and reminded the town council that abuse of HOA power reflected poorly on local governance. The room was packed, mostly older folks. Some of them had been bullied by Karen too. One man stood up and said she fined him $100 for hanging a wind chime. Another woman said Karen had cut down her rose bushes without notice. By the time June was done, the council voted unanimously to restrict the Cedar Pines HOA's ability to expand jurisdiction, pending a full audit. The next week, Karen resigned. Quietly, no farewell post, no last-minute power grab, just a typed letter handed to the board with shaky hands. I found out from Linda, one of the board members who'd always smiled but never spoken much. She brought me a pie, blueberry, and said, "We're sorry for everything, Earl. We got swept up. She scared us too." I told her I forgave her, because I did. Folks make mistakes, but justice means correcting them. And that's what we did. The HOA lost its bite, fines were reduced, enforcement returned to normal, and for the first time in years, neighbors waved again. Real waves, not the stiff kind done out of obligation. The smoker still sits on my back deck, and every year, I still make those ribs. This past spring, Deputy Horner stopped by for a plate, said it tasted like victory. I reckon it did. And Karen, well, rumor has it she tried to start another HOA in a town 2 hours south. Didn't last long. Seems people are getting wise. So if you're out there, dealing with an HOA Karen of your own, remember this. Read the fine print. Know your rights. And don't let anyone scare you off your own land. You stand your ground, and one day, they just might lose theirs. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, subscribe, and stick around. I've got more wild HOA tales coming your way.